In this world, the moon is undergoing a strange mutation that causes temperatures to soar above 100 degrees. The heat makes the surface of the Earth unbearable. Power plants explode. You can't be outside for more than 20 seconds without passing out, and the asphalt is so scorching it could burn you. With the world essentially trapped indoors, supplies have become the most valuable thing anyone can have. Our protagonist managed to survive for 5 years with his girlfriend. But as their supplies started running low, she betrayed him, sending someone to kill him before everything was completely gone. Now, however, he's been sent back in time, 5 years before the disaster began. This time, he's determined to stockpile food and resources, vowing to collect 3 billion units and take revenge on everyone who wronged him. He also plans to be ruthless, knowing that kindness doesn't survive in a world like this. At the start of his new life, he's on a bus. People around him are chatting about strange disasters. Someone mentions that Mount Fuji just had an earthquake that killed dozens. Their city is being evacuated, too. A girl in a tight pink dress says she had to leave so quickly she didn't even have time to buy supplies. Another guy beside her talks about how supplies from nearby cities have mysteriously disappeared, and a third person says the same happened at several major storage sites. The girl is alarmed, saying all those supplies must be worth billions. That's when the protagonist, sitting quietly in the back, corrects her. It's worth trillions. He warns them that the disappearance of supplies and these natural disasters suggest something big is about to happen. The girl asks if this means it's the end of the world. A guy in a green shirt excitedly says he can't wait for everyone to be treated equally. But the protagonist knows better. Inequality will only get worse. He's seen it firsthand. In his past life, he was just an ordinary delivery guy when the apocalypse struck. Overnight, scorching heat waves covered the planet. Tectonic plates shifted, and monstrous creatures from deep underground emerged. Society collapsed, and a new world order was born. Scarcity ruled everything. A packet of instant noodles was worth millions, and a single sausage could buy anything. Normal life completely disappeared. Now, back in time and armed with the knowledge of what's coming, the protagonist is determined to prepare. The girl in the pink dress tries to cling to him, scared, and asks him to comfort her, but he brushes her off. There are bigger priorities, like securing supplies. In an apocalypse, that's the only thing that matters. He heads to his job at Walmart, where his boss scolds him and threatens to cut his salary. But the protagonist doesn't care. In the first timeline, he remembers that this same boss took all the store's supplies for himself. This time, the tables have turned. The protagonist sneaks into the warehouse, and with the help of his mysterious system, a spatial storage ability with a massive 10,000-meter capacity, he begins to stockpile. The system scans the area and absorbs everything into his personal space, where time is frozen, meaning all the food will stay fresh forever. He's even able to siphon water from lakes and take resources from entire cities before they're destroyed. He knows just how valuable these supplies will be, far more than anyone can imagine. After emptying the warehouse, he feels relief for the first time, knowing he's finally prepared. Just then, 3 of his co-workers walk in and see the empty shelves. Confused, they demand to know what happened. Calmly, the protagonist tells them that he took everything. The boss, furious, doesn't understand how he did it but orders the others to grab him. As they approach, the protagonist steps back and suddenly vanishes into thin air, leaving them all stunned. They stand there puzzled, wondering where he disappeared to while he reappears outside. This is his second ability, spatial jump. Using his spatial power, he can teleport up to 3 meters away. With this, he can gather supplies much more easily and escape without a fuss. He tosses his uniform in the air, declaring the collection complete. Then he receives a message on his phone from the authorities warning that the Earth is undergoing strange movements, and everyone should be cautious because a disaster could happen. But there's no need to panic. Our protagonist finds this curious since nothing has really started yet, and they're already saying this. Does it mean they somehow know the future? At that moment, he receives a call from his girlfriend, ᴄᴏᴘᴘыឫ. He sighs and answers, and she scolds him, asking how he had the nerve to put their house up for sale. Does he think she'll really stay with him if he sells the house? He needs to be more responsible as a man because even though she doesn't want the house, she's still a woman. And if he wants to prove to her that he's a real man, he should hand over the house to make her feel secure. Suchin, our protagonist, asks if she has anything else to say. She says, "What kind of attitude is this?" If he hands over the house, it'll give him another chance. Just transfer the documents to her. But if he doesn't do that, don't even think about marrying her. But Suchin hangs up without saying anything. He remembers that in the last 5 years of the apocalypse, he went out every day to hunt for supplies to feed her and even took her to one of the safe zones. If it weren't for him, she would have starved in the first few days. But still, and he remembers a day when he returned home and was attacked from behind, all because he wasn't bringing in as many supplies and they wanted to know if he was hiding something. After Suchin was killed, they had fun next to his body. And Jiang Shaoqian warned the guy on top of her that Suchin died because he was a useless incompetent. And it's good for this guy to prove he's not so incompetent. Suchin was devastated to have trusted such a person for so long. But in this life, Jiang Shaoqian and that guy named Wang Haoyu will pay the price, and they won't die easily. The pain he felt, they will feel 100 times more. He calms down and remembers that the things he needs now are not found in the market and can only be bought with money. But first, he needs to get that money. So he calls a guy named Lu and says he's selling his house at half price. But he wants the money now. In front of the real estate agency, Wang and Jiang Shaoqian are waiting for him. When he appears, Jiang Shaoqian scolds him for keeping her waiting for so long. But he ignores her and walks past. Wang asks who let him sell the house, and that if he does anything like this again, he won't see the sun tomorrow. But at that moment, Suchin, who has learned to fight after surviving, grabs him by the neck and throws him to the ground, saying he can do whatever he wants with his things. Jiang Shaoqian is scared by this and tries to stop him. But she receives a slap and falls to the ground in disbelief. On the ground, Wang is begging him to let go, saying he's almost suffocating. But Suchin tells him not to worry since he won't die so easily. He then releases Wang, who is shocked on the ground while Suchin enters the real estate agency. At that moment, Jiang Shaoqian threatens him, saying to seize this opportunity she's giving him. If he kneels down and apologizes, she'll consider his case. But if he doesn't do that, forget about marrying her. Jiang Shaoqian looks back and stares at the two who run away in fear. Inside the real estate agency, the attendant offers him some water, saying they will buy his house now. What does he think? The realtor's plan is simple. Jiang Shaoqian's house is worth $1 million, but now he's selling it for $700,000. All he needs to do is buy and sell to someone else, and he'll make a good profit. Jiang Shaoqian agrees to sell, but he has to receive the full payment now. The guy agrees, saying they'll transfer everything and by tomorrow morning, it'll all be sorted out. Suchin obviously agrees because houses will lose all value as temperatures rise. Despite several disasters occurring, this city is still peaceful for now. Volcanoes, earthquakes, and tsunamis are all still far away. Walking down the street, he sees a poster advertising quick loans. He decides to go there with his house certificate. Upon arrival, he's shocked to see it's the older brother of the guy who just beat him up, knowing this guy will die in the jaws of a monster in the first few days. The guy says he can lend him $500,000. He just needs to leave the house certificate. Suchin hands over the certificate, saying he wants another $100,000 and promises to win it all back at the casino in a week. The seller likes hearing this and thinks this kid must be one of those gamblers who would sell even their relatives if necessary. This way he won't be able to pay, will keep the house, and will still have a lot of debt. With that, the guy agrees, and another $600,000 is transferred. As they were going to visit, Juan's brother and Suchin just came from there, and they spot him. Juan wants to know what he's doing here, already grabbing his neck in fear, but they decide to follow him. Suchin remembers that several buildings will collapse because of the tsunami, but this hotel in the Green City has withstood all disasters until the end. He knows the presidential suite is well equipped and even has a pool. Maybe it's a good place to use as a base for a while. Even at the end of times, this place continued to have food for a long time. He is then greeted by the attendant Lu Xinru, who asks what she can do for him. Suchin says he wants 1,000 tables for a banquet, startling her. She offers some table options, thinking this kid must be the son of someone very rich. He says he'll want the table that costs 10,000 each and will make a deposit of 500,000. When everything is settled, he'll make the rest of the payment. She is somewhat incredulous, but says to follow her to make the payment, thinking that even though this payment of his may not be much, someone who easily spends $500,000 surely has more to spend, so it's best to facilitate the process. Entering the room, she asks if he's getting married. He says yes, And all this is for a wedding, and he also wants a presidential suite. Some time later, he's leaving the hotel all happy. He got over $10 million in food, spending $500,000 with the advance deposit. And it doesn't matter about the rest, since when the apocalypse begins, the ice blocks he'll have will be worth billions. Watching him leave, she thinks whoever marries him is a lucky girl. At that moment, Zhang Xiaoqian appears and asks what that person was doing. The attendant asks who she is, and she says she's Suchin's girlfriend. The attendant then says her boyfriend ordered a banquet for over 1,000 people and paid $500,000. To have a boyfriend like him, she's really lucky. However, the attendant is looking and thinking this girl is at most a 7. She has a good body. Why do rich guys always like women like this? The attendant says it's the case, and that maybe she hasn't realized, but many rich people do this. They get into relationships and hide all the money they have until the day of the wedding. Zhang Xiaoqian starts to believe this, and Wang thinks it's impossible for that loser to have so much money. However, the attendant shows that she received the transfer of $500,000. On the street, Wang is asking Zhang Xiaoqian who is he going to invite to a 1,000-person banquet. Now Zhang Xiaoqian is confident, saying, "You really don't understand, do you? He's trying to introduce me to the circle of millionaires he knows. Only then will he reveal my identity." Wang is wanting to become a mountaineer and venture into the mountains. But she slaps in, thinking that she has to create as many opportunities as possible to stay with that loser, while imagining herself as a wealthy lady in a chair being pampered. Her eyes sparkle. She never imagined this scenario. She'll definitely have to marry Suchin, the loser. And that's too good. Meanwhile, Suchin is just tallying up what he's done. $700,000 for the house, plus $600,000 loan, and $500,000 for the banquet. And now that his name is about to be tarnished, taking out a bunch more loans wouldn't be bad. So he installs all the banking apps on his phone and starts taking out a bunch more loans. After creating over 80 accounts, he managed to get another $970,000. Now he needs to buy a fireplace, ice-making machine, ice blocks, smokeless charcoal, and a few other things that aren't available in the markets. With the amount of money he has, buying online with fast delivery is easy. These items are essential for surviving the extreme cold and heat that will occur. He then orders 2,000 tons of smokeless charcoal and also calls an ice factory to make a reservation. As he's walking down the street, a girl calls out to him. She's a friend of Xiaoqian's and says Xiaoqian misses him. However, Suchin knows this girl isn't up to any good and has always spoken ill of him to everyone. So he tells her to miss me. She must miss my house, right? And she has to realize how sad he was with her behavior. Xiaoqian then rushes to Chin to apologize, feeling embarrassed, asking if he can accompany her for a walk. She's not feeling well, and she was sad to have fought with him yesterday. But Suchin ignores her and tells her to go for a walk alone. Xiaoqian is losing her temper, saying he's being too arrogant, and Lena says he's getting a taxi. It's good they follow him and see what he's up to. Meanwhile, Suchin is arriving at the ice factory. The guy receives him, impressed that he's so young. Suchin asks if the 2,000 tons of edible ice are ready, and the attendant says his factory isn't cheap, but guarantees extremely fast delivery. He just needs to pay a small portion, and they'll deliver everything. Suchin then transfers $100,000 to him, and the seller informs that everything will be delivered in 3 days. Save the money. The attendant asks why he needs so much ice. Is he organizing an event? If he wants, they can cooperate in the future, and the price is negotiable. Suchin says it's all for a charity event and leaves. At that moment, another taxi stops and the seller gets excited. But it's Xiaoqian wanting to know what that guy who just left was doing here. She's asking because he's her boyfriend. The seller is confused. Is this girl playing detective? What's going on here? He says he ordered 800,000 in ice. Both of them are shocked. 800,000 in ice. It's confirmed. He's a millionaire indeed to do something like that. Lena asks, did he tell you what he's going to do with so much ice? The seller thinks and remembers he said he's going to donate it to charity. Both of them get scared without understanding the reason. The scene shifts to one of the city's fanciest restaurants. In his past life, he never enjoyed anything before everything was destroyed. And even having a coffee was a luxury. Looking at the menu, he sees it's all quite expensive. And on the last page, there's something for 17,000 with a question mark. He asks when it is, and the attendant says it's a special item made by their chef. Suchin says it sounds good and places the order. He remembers that in his past life several creatures mutated. Some people thought it was some kind of biological change. But for him, it was just the creatures adapting to the new environment. At that moment, a girl with pink hair comes to deliver his order. She's marvelous and introduces herself as the chef of this restaurant. Suchin recognizes her as Chef ᴄᴏᴘᴘᴘ. During the apocalypse, she became known as the Hell's Chef. She had some kind of magical culinary ability that turned corpses into edible things. And in a world of scarcity, no one could resist temptation. However, the dishes made with mutated creatures always ended up killing people. Seeing his expression, she wonders, does he think that a beautiful girl like me would poison his food? And then she tells him that the dish she served is called Two-Faced Life. It's a meat dish with different preparations on each side. Suchin tries it and says it's really worth the $17,000 while thinking it would be wonderful to have her at home to cook outside. Lena says she heard this restaurant is really expensive. And Xiaoqian says she can't wait to become a rich wife. So Suchin decides to go to one of the city's most expensive bars, since soon it won't be possible. As soon as he sits down, a bunch of girls surround him asking what he wants to drink. He starts drinking with them, and when he looks to the side, there's a girl sitting there. Her friend says she was betrayed by her boyfriend and came here to have some fun. The girl says her boyfriend didn't even sleep with her and cheated on her with an old woman. Why do all men act like that? Suchin says it's because men's instinct to reproduce is ingrained in their DNA and mind. Suddenly, she drinks her entire drink and asks if he's single. He's confused, but she approaches and asks if he's interested. At that moment, Xiaoqian and Lena enter the bar looking for him. And at a table in the corner, they see him with the three girls. Suchin tells her they can go up to a room, and she seems to agree, so the two rush off. It seems the desire between them is strong. Ki-ju-chan and Lena shout at him to stop, but the two run to the room, enter, and close the door. He apologizes to her for those two, and the girl timidly says it's her first time. Suchin feels awkward and flicks her forehead, saying she must be drunk to do something like that. He tells her not to leave the house for the next few days and to stock up on food. She says she understands, and then he says a girl like her shouldn't be in a place like this. With that, he closes the door and leaves, thinking it's a shame. But he won't be able to seize this opportunity. When he leaves the room, Xiaoqian and Lena are kicking all the doors, but he easily leaves, and the next day, he receives all the delivery trucks. From the ice charcoal to the banquets, wine is confused in the crowd, wondering why the hell Suchin rented such a huge warehouse just to receive so much stuff. And now even Xiaoqian is getting confused, wondering what he's doing. At that moment, Lena points out that the banquet from the Green City Hotel has arrived. They are laying out the carpets and organizing all the tables beautifully. Could it be that suddenly a bunch of people will arrive, and you will declare his love for her and propose? Xiaoqian is now all haughty, saying that even if he proposes, she'll still think about his case. They say they need to see his sincerity and decide to go talk to him. She then goes to Suchin and asks why he's buying so much stuff. And Suchin says he'll explain later, but can she help him organize everything? Xiaoqian is scared, thinking he's a jerk for making the girl who's about to become rich soon do such hard work. Lena says it must be some kind of test to see if she's qualified to become a rich girl. And at that, Hyo can change her attitude and says she's not that weak type of woman. She knows how to be delicate, but also knows how to work and starts carrying the boxes. But she's dying of anger, saying that when she becomes a rich woman, Suchin will pay. At that moment, Lena comes to try to seduce him, saying she'll help carry the boxes. In her mind, she's sure that someone as rich as him won't have just one woman, right? As long as she shows a bit of what she has to offer, she might at least get to enjoy a little. Meanwhile, Suchin is thinking he can't lose free labor like this. After all, with so much ice and tables to set up, they'll need some help. Some time passes, and they finally finish everything. Ki Xiaoqian is dripping with sweat, and her legs are shaking. She says she's been carrying stuff since morning until now. As soon as she becomes his wife, she'll make sure to take all his money. Lena, lying on the ground, is also finished, saying that the damn guy really made them carry those heavy ice boxes. Xiaoqian says enough of this test. He has to propose to her right away and start the party or the guests will arrive. And Lena says he needs to hurry up because the food is getting cold. Meanwhile, Suchin gives a good amount of extra money to all the delivery guys who thank him from the bottom of their hearts. At that moment, Xiaoqian comes and asks Suchin, "Don't you have something to tell me?" Suchin says yes. He thanks her for the help. But unfortunately, there's no payment for them, so they can leave now. Xiaoqian is shocked and tells him to stop joking. The guests are already arriving, not to mention there are 1,000 tables. Why doesn't he just reveal that he wants to marry her so they can have a good life? Suchin looks back and says that's impossible for him. After all, he's already sold the house and accumulated a bunch of debts. They surely want to marry him. Lena says that doesn't make sense. How can someone with no money buy so much ice? Suchin says he's only doing all this to help his very rich boss who wants to do a charity project, saying he's been lying to her this whole time. He says he hasn't lied about anything while she falls to the ground with a monstrous look, saying he's just a poor loser who can forget about marrying her. Suchin says he's not interested at all, and she angrily leaves, saying she's a bastard and will regret it. When they both leave, he thinks they'll regret it once the apocalypse starts. He then closes the warehouse door to start storing everything in his space. With that, all preparations are finally ready. Back at the hotel with Wang Dihai, the guy he borrowed money from, Wang Haoyu pulls Xiaoqian aside and tells her not to pay attention to that loser, Suchin, anymore. She should stick with him all the time anyway. She's gnashing her teeth, saying she's looking forward to his performance tonight. And Wang tells her not to worry. He'll ask his brother to hide to deal with that guy for her. Xiaoqian thinks that Wang isn't really that bad after all. Plus, he has his influential brother. He's definitely better than that loser. Just then, Suchin says she really throws herself at anyone. She's startled and asks what he's doing there, while Wang points at him and tells his brother it was this guy who hit him. Dihai says he didn't expect it to be this guy here, and Wang asks if he knows that guy. Dihai explains that this kid borrowed $600,000 from him and has to pay it back by tomorrow. Wang says that's perfect. They can settle these two things. Xiaoqian is now happily saying she really got rid of the loser, especially one who owes money to Dihai's brother. And Dihai reminds him that the payment date is tomorrow. Why is he here in this hotel, acting like everything's fine? Wang shouts at his brother not even to talk to this guy since he hit him. Xianru then appears and asks what's going on and if they can resolve it. Dihai says if she forces that kid to kneel down and apologize, they can let it slide for today. She then asks Xiaoqian what's going on. He says it's just some pest bothering him. Dihai then bangs on the table, saying he was only calm because his payment is due tomorrow. But from afar, a guy with a goatee asks what's going on and who let him cause trouble here. Suchan and Dihai recognize this guy as Gaochong. Dihai starts apologizing, asking what he's doing here. Gaochong says he has important matters to discuss here today, and it's not for him to cause trouble. Dihai knows this guy is an entrepreneur, but is involved in various underworld activities, and he has a lot of people under his command, so it's really not good to go against him. And with that, he apologizes, saying he'll come back later. Suchan recognizes this guy as Skull Crusher, and in the apocalypse, this guy became one of the most powerful forces, and he even had the boss of hell working for him. Suchan remembers that this hotel was one of the first places where some people with powers appeared, and maybe he got so strong because of something that will happen here. Gaochong stares at him, while Suchan thinks whatever opportunity arises in this hotel, he'll seize it. Sometime later, Gaochong is taking Duanya to meet someone named Mr. Sun, and she asks what this guy wants to discuss with her. Mr. Sun says he was looking forward to meeting the wonderful Miss Duan, and then serves her a drink. Duanya realizes there's something wrong with that glass clearly containing some kind of drug, while Suchan remembers in his past life, he hid in the basement with Xiaoqian and barely survived. He never expected that in this life he would kick her and she would still follow him here. But this is the perfect opportunity for revenge. Looking at the pool where the two brothers are going to refresh themselves, saying that tonight is strangely hot, but it's worth it since the girls will come in bikinis. They then appear and look at the moon, saying it's strangely bright. It's shining as much as the daytime sun. At that moment, Wang declares his love for her, while Suchan in the room says their love is really about to explode. With a glass to the moon, he welcomes the apocalypse. The moon then begins to tremble and emit a red aura. Everyone outside feels something strange, and their skin begins to burn. They all start running back to the hotel, saying something's wrong. Why is the moonlight burning so much? Inside the hotel, people are confused. It's night, but it's very bright. At that moment, the three of them are running, and everyone is scared. Their skin is already red. They are desperate, looking for somewhere to cool down. They then see an aquarium, run to it, knock it over, and jump in to relieve the pain. The hotel staff ask what's going on and where is Hai's brother. At that moment, Wang remembers his brother who appears at the door with his skin all burnt. In the room, Mr. Sun is asking Duan why she's not drinking, and Gao Chong says they prepared a banquet, so why don't they go there now? But Mr. Sun tells him that in this city, nobody can refuse to drink the wine he pours into the glass. Duan gets angry, thinking Gao crying set her up. He's so eager to raise his social status that he handed her over to this Mr. Sunday. She knows this Sun Debio very well. He's a guy who's invincible in the city of Shangyo, has harmed many women. And today, she became his target. She's absolutely sure there's something wrong with this wine, so she can't drink it. But what will she do? Right at that moment, the moon starts burning the three of them, and they close the curtain wondering what's happening. Mr. Sun says they'd better go down to understand better, and Duan feels relieved to get out of the situation. In the lobby, Shinrue is trying to calm everyone down, saying the rescue teams must be coming. Gao crying asks one of his henchmen what's going on. He explains that suddenly the moon shone red, and the temperature outside rose by over 70 degrees. In the news, they're saying that a lot of people have already been injured and burned. Mr. Sun calls the minister and asks them to send someone to pick him up. However, sometime later, he tells Gao Fong that unfortunately, it seems they're having some problems and won't be able to make it. Meanwhile, Dahai is in agony with his entire skin burned. People are trying to apply some burn ointments, but it's not enough, not to mention he needs to be taken to a hospital. But with his high temperature outside, it will be impossible. He says he'll call a friend to come pick him up. The friend answers the phone, saying it's in the middle of nowhere, but okay, he'll come. As soon as he leaves the garage, he sees it's too hot and gets confused. The heat is so intense that the tires burst and gets out of the car, calls his friend to let him know he'll be delayed, and runs away. However, the sole of his shoe melts, and he slips and falls to the ground. Looking sideways, he sees another person lying there, already a dry corpse. He gets scared and tries to get up without realizing that half of his face is already on the asphalt. Everyone in the hotel is startled when he screams on the phone. While all this is happening, our protagonist is in his room with controlled temperature. He's sleeping soundly in bed, and government announcements are already being made. Due to the intense heat emitted by the moon, temperatures have risen by over 75 degrees, with the ground reaching over 100. The event has already resulted in hundreds of casualties. Please stay indoors to avoid skin and respiratory burns. At that moment, one of the power plants explodes due to excess heat. Cutting off some communications, Dahai says he lost contact with his friends. While everyone is in the last room left in the hotel, Shabishin and Lena are complaining that they don't want to stay in a room full of men. But at that moment, the power goes out, and with that, the air conditioning also stops working, and everyone starts taking off their shirts, dying of heat. Shabishin remembers that Suchan's room has a pool. Meanwhile, our protagonist is swimming peacefully. He already knew the power would go out because of the explosion in the power plants. And that's also why he chose a room specifically with a pool, in addition to vertical air conditioners and giant batteries to ensure the temperature. But he's also missing some ice here. He changes, sits on the sofa, thinking it's very nice now. He's hungry, so he sets up a banquet on the table. As it's the first day of the apocalypse, he needs his small breakfast, all wondering when Gok Chong will have the chance to gain powers. Someone knocks on the door, saying they know he's in there. Our protagonist knows that with the power to teleport and the preparations he made, he doesn't need to worry. So to cause anger and envy, he decides to open the room. As soon as the door begins to open, a cold breeze comes out, and everyone feels an indescribable relief, wondering, why does it seem so nice in there, and why does he have air conditioning? Suchan asks if they need anything. One points out to everyone that he has ice, a pool, food, and electricity. Lena and Seokin start shouting at him, asking how he dares to let them burn outside all day while he's living in luxury. He better leave that room now. The High tells him the time to pay back everything he owed has come, so he better hand over that room. But the moment he steps into the room, he takes a shot in the stomach. The High is shocked when he sees the wound, and Suchan warns that if he takes another step, he'll die. Everyone is trembling now. Does he really have a gun? The High is outraged, asking where he got that. But another shot is heard in the room, and everyone is scared when Daha falls to the ground, now with a wound in his leg. Sukjin points outside, saying whoever wants to die can stay there, and he'll give them 3 seconds. Whoever is in his line of sight will go to the next life. Meanwhile, Goksin is talking to Dixin-ru, asking how is it possible for such a large hotel not to have any food. She apologizes, saying they recently had a banquet for over 1,000 people, and the ingredients and food were scheduled to arrive today. At this moment, Mr. Sun, pouring water over his body, commands her to bring all the water and food she has right away. Family starts to become outraged by the water waste he's causing, and a war breaks out in the lobby. Just then, Daha arrives with his injuries and everyone mourns that Su-chan shot someone. Seeing the wound, Gu Kyoman wonders, is there someone with a gun in this place? Seems like there's a tough guy living upstairs. Siebishin then informs everyone that Suchin's room has electricity, air conditioning, and even a pool. People surround her, asking if she's not lying. If she's sure, she affirms they can believe her. He even has an ice cube and plenty of food, so everyone decides to go to his room. Meanwhile, Gao Quan sends one of his henchmen to take a look as well. Once again, he opens the door, asking what they want, and everyone feels the refreshing cool air touching their skin. It seems like paradise in there. The crowd outside pleads for him to be kind and take care of the elderly, stating that since it's a hotel emergency, he should share everything he has with everyone. The chubby little boy spots some fried chicken and jumps to grab it. However, he's stopped with a kick to the belly and is sent flying. Suchin warns the parents to take care of the kids, or he'll have to do it for them. People are outraged, asking how he dares to hit a child. He's truly a murderer and doesn't deserve to stay in that room. Everyone starts to enter. However, at that moment, he shoots the guy in the back who falls to the ground. Suchin warns that he may be alone, but everyone there only has one life. He knows the situation seems dangerous, but at any moment, he can jump through the portal and disappear. Downstairs, Wayne is furious. After his brother suffered 2 gunshot wounds, a crowd threw his body out because he was already dying and decomposing. Wayne is saying they have to kill that damn Suchin. Meanwhile, in Suchin's room, Xiaoqian and Lina are sweating and dripping with heat as they're asking to come in, saying they're sure he wouldn't have the courage to shoot them, and that they love him very much and are sure he loves them. If he lets them stay there for a little while, they promise to join him in a 2-against-1 adventure all night long. Suchin says that since they want to work together so eagerly, he'll let them in. They're all happy and disbelieving, but suddenly, Wayne passes between them, hitting them, saying he'll kill him. When he's about to touch Suchin, he takes a blow to the face, collides with the two, and everyone falls to the ground. Stein Wayne beaten in their arms, they're afraid to enter the room, and Suchin says just go away from here. They leave, and he says he's just playing for now, but if anyone tries anything, the artillery robot he has installed will sort everything out in seconds. Tanks are seen outside the hotel, and everyone believes it's the rescue team. They leave armed and wearing protective clothing. Upon entering a hotel, they ask if someone named Lu Xinghua is there. The guy introduces himself, and they then tell him to put on the insulation suit and come with them. Everyone asks to be rescued together. However, the soldier assures them to stay calm. The rescue operation will take place tonight and midnight in Silicon Valley Square. The residents celebrate, saying the government really hasn't abandoned them. Meanwhile, Mr. Sun says he'll pay $1 billion if they take him now. However, he's restrained by one of the soldiers, who tells him not to interfere with the operation. Mr. Sun tells Gaochang to do something, but clearly, with so much aimed at him, there's no way. At that moment, Shur-Oken grabs one of the soldiers and says there's a killer living upstairs, and Lina says he's already killed a bunch of people and will soon finish everyone here. They need to save the people in the hotel. A soldier named Xiao Feng then says he'll take a look, and his friend tells him to be careful and not act impulsively. He takes his gun and starts climbing the stairs toward the room. Wang Xiaoqin is thinking this is the perfect situation. As soon as this guy kills Suchin, she'll steal that room for herself. Xiao Feng cautiously walks down the hallway, observing every corner until he notices a camera looking at him. Suddenly, Suchin opens the door and throws a flashbang. Before he could understand what's happening, it explodes in his face, blinding him. A sleeping gas falls at his feet, and when he crouches, Suchin appears from behind and hits him on the head. Sometime later, he wakes up in the room, not understanding what's happening and why it's so cold. Suchin tells him, "Your name is Luke Xiaofeng, and you're a captain of the special forces. Now that you're awake, let's talk. Xiao Feng looks around at the ice cubes and asks what's going on here, who he is, and where he got those grenades and weapons. Suchin says he's just a regular guy who just graduated, and he got those weapons on a trip to the Middle East. Suchin then asks if the government set the rescue points for tomorrow morning, and Xiao Feng is surprised by the fact that he already knows that information. Suchin realizes it's all going to be the same as in the past life, and warns Xiao Feng that even though the temperature is lower at midnight, people can't stand more than 10 minutes outside. The vast majority will die just trying to reach the rescue point. Xiao Feng says they have no choice since many people are starving in their homes and can't stand the heat anymore. Their only chance is to reach the rescue point, and since it's difficult to modify the vehicles, there's no time to rescue everyone indoors. At least if they put some blankets over their heads, maybe they can make it. Suchin then suddenly puts his hand on his shoulder and points the gun. Xiao Feng asks him to calm down and says all he wants is to at least warn everyone to go with blankets. Suchin then cuts the rope and says he's free since he respects the fact that he's saving lives. But it's good he doesn't try to come in here again. Xiao Feng asked if he's not afraid he'll come back with other people, but Suchin shows him there's no need to be afraid, and Xiao Feng recognizes it right away. It's a camera with facial recognition, and it builds an automatic machine gun. He wants to know where Suchin got it, but Suchin says he already said the Middle East. Now he better leave the room because he doesn't have time to deal with this anymore. Xiao Feng accepts and leaves back to the tank. Mr. Sun gets angry, thinking that not even the Dan soldier could deal with the guy. He hits Xiaoqian, saying he really can't do anything. Xiaoqian's henchmen ask if they really won't do anything and will tolerate this guy. Xiaoqian explains that after everyone is rescued, they'll still need the connections. It's dangerous to act now. At that moment, Suchin appears and says, in times of chaos, you're still dreaming of restoring order. The henchman gets angry, but Xiaoqian tells him to calm down and asks why Suchin came down. Suchin then shows a bucket of ice, saying he came here to negotiate. The henchman tells Xiaoqian it's good to kill that kid now and take everything he has in the room. But Suchin points the gun, and the guy gives up the idea. Xiaoqian then says they should talk business, and he hands over the edible ice to both of them. When they eat it, they're impressed with how delicious it is. Xiaoqian now also wants to kill Suchin to take everything he has, but first they'll meet his demands. At that moment, Mr. Sun kicks him in the stomach, saying he's a damn liar for hiding those ice cubes, and starts stepping on him, saying if he hides anything else, he'll die. Xiaoqian is losing it, and Mr. Sun sees Duan sitting, saying she's a very modest girl. Every woman's about to die of heat, and she hasn't even had the courage to take off her clothes. But he grabs her arm, saying he's tired of seeing her attitude, and he's in the mood to do certain things, so she better follow him. Duan slaps him in the face, calling him a bastard. But suddenly Sun rips her shirt, saying for her disobedience, he'll take advantage first, and then everyone will do what they want. She falls to the ground scared, and he says she's sweating a lot, and he's just doing her a favor. Until Xiaoqian appears behind him saying enough of this. Sun turns to say something, but Xiaoqian punches him in the neck with a closed hand, breaking it instantly. He falls to the ground dead, and Xiaoqian says Suchin is right. Indeed, this place is already chaos, and people like him have to die with it, and then mourns that this place is now under his control. Whoever doesn't want to obey will go to the rescue point or die here. Upstairs, Suchin observes, saying that apparently his words were effective. Xiaoqian was already the boss of this place in the past life, so he just spit things up. And with that, the two of them had already been thrown out. Xiaoqian then starts drinking the ice Suchin gave him, and Lena begged for a little piece, saying they'll do whatever he wants. He throws it to them, saying it's okay. They'll give them some, but they better obey any demand. His henchman asks if they're not going to the rescue point, and Xiaoqian says it's too far. It's not certain they'll survive. The henchman asks why he wants these women if they're running out of resources. Xiaoqian says it's all part of a plan to deal with Suchin. At midnight, Lena and Xiaoqian try to leave, covering themselves with blankets, but the henchman comes and takes everything off them. Xiaoqian asks what he thinks he's doing, but the henchman mourns that now that they've taken the ice, they'll have to stay with him for a while. Those who decided not to obey Xiaoqian because he didn't provide supplies are trying to reach the rescue point. But even though it's midnight, the ground is much hotter than they imagined. They're trying to protect their feet with a piece of wood, but it makes it difficult to walk, and one of them stumbles. Upon contact with the ground, their hand and face melt, leaving the survivor behind to die. Meanwhile, Dihue's body, which was burning on the ground until now, wakes up with red eyes. From the balcony, Suchin observes everything, remembering that in the past life, he almost died on this walk. Kyagokin and Lena say they can do whatever he wants, but why don't they at least go to the room? The henchman says they're being too shy. There's no need to try to hide. But suddenly the glass shatters, and the two chubby guys who were burned come running after everyone. Wang thinks they're zombies and asks if they'll turn to if they're bitten. Gokin says they need to figure it out, then grabs him by the neck and throws him to the two creatures. Wang's back is burned just by making contact with the creatures, and Suchin appears with a blade, telling everyone to get out of the way. The henchman can't believe he wants to deal with these monsters, and Xiaoqian is eager, thinking that as soon as Suchin kills the two, he'll kill him and take everything for him. Suchin knows that bodies exposed to heat turn into zombies, but they don't share any virus. You could say they're more like throughout demons. The difference is that these demons retain some memories from their past life. Suchin stands still and Mr. Sun passes by him and goes toward Xiaoqian. That's because he was killed by him. But Wang Dihai was killed by Suchin and attacks him. However, seeing this situation, he's sure that the chance for Gokin to awaken some powers by killing Mr. Sunday. So if he goes in his direction, it cuts off his chance. A purple crystal comes out of his body, and that's a kind of core that can evolve a human body. He grabs the crystal, jumps back, and pushes Dihai towards everyone. With that, he goes up the stairs and tells him to have fun. Gokin grabs the guy on the ground again and throws him towards the creature. Back in his room, Suchin says these crystals are extremely rare. He puts it in a glass and drinks it since that's the absorption method. The body extracts the energy from the crystal and strengthens itself. His eyes turn red, and he starts screaming while all his clothes burn. He falls on the ground on top of an ice block, while in the lobby the drought demon has finished all their water. Now without anything to drink or eat, Lena wants to escape. But the henchman stops her, saying she's not going to run away. At that moment, Lena says they should use Xiaoqian. She was Suchin's wife, and if they throw her at the door, it's certain he'll open, and then they can try to steal something from him. The henchman says it's a great idea, and Suchin says she'll help. But she wants to eat meat first. The henchman says there's no meat since the refrigerators have been off for days. Gokin looks at her and asks if she wants meat. Then he has a solution. They restrain Lena, and he warns her that if she wants to, she'll have to do it. Suchin is shocked, asking if he means they're going to eat her meat. While Lena is trembling, Suchin is going towards her. Lena pleads, saying, "What are you doing? You're not going to do that, are you?" But Gokin goes to her face and says she just betrayed her by talking about her being Suchin's wife. Since she did that, she deserves it, and then strikes 3 times. Gokin and the henchman are even scared to see how she did that without hesitation. Gokin is going crazy, saying that when she's full, she'll go up and drink Suchin's blood. The henchman looks at Gokin and asks if they're really going to do that. Meanwhile in the room, Suchin is jumping around with his new body. Not only is he more resistant to heat, but he's also more agile and strong. At that moment, he sees Duan at the door. Standing at the entrance, she's thinking it's getting crazy down there. She doesn't have a chance of surviving if she stays there. So she has to try her luck and use what's left of her value to get something here. Right at that moment, Suchin opens the door naked and she gets scared. She screams and he apologizes, saying it was unintentional. He was excited about some news. In the room, he then tells her that even though he has resources, it's limited and decides they just met, and he can't accept her just because she's beautiful, right? He remembers that in the past life, she was a very smart woman. Furthermore, she formed a cooperative relationship with Gokin. However, even though he had thought about having her around, the atmosphere feels strange now. Duan then tells him that she's not just a cook, she's also a doctor who has been working as a surgeon for 3 years. She's thinking that his room is extremely well equipped. Not only does it have electricity, but it also has ice and food. She needs to demonstrate her worth to stay here. On the sofa, Suchin acknowledges that being a doctor is indeed a good proposition. However, as she knows, resources are extremely scarce, and it's uncertain if they'll survive until tomorrow. Feeling uncertain upon hearing this, she says that as long as he doesn't kick her out of the room, she'll do whatever he wants. Upon hearing this proposal, Suchin immediately states that this is her new home. She feels embarrassed, thinking she said that a bit hastily and unintentionally. Suchin warns her that her only choice is to behave. If he catches her planning something behind his back, their relationship will end. Duan assures him that she understands and will never doubt any of his methods or determination. Suchin then suggests that she can demonstrate her determination by undressing. She was embarrassed, asking if they were going to start now. Taking a shower, she felt that with water, electricity, food, and still not having to worry about the weather, that place was simply heaven for anyone. The only problem was that Suchin wasn't exactly a saint. He grabbed her by the chin and said he was going to give her something different to eat. After 7 days of starvation, Duan opened her mouth expecting anything she would receive. While she thought she knew very well the direction this was going to take, she was prepared the moment she entered the room. Suchin was just like us, watching on his phone screen. With a mischievous smile, he said he wasn't doing that just to spy, it was to prevent her from doing improper things. She then came out of the bathroom wearing heels. Heavens above, thank goodness she's a doctor because I'm sure that some heart stopped. She even asked Suchin if it wasn't too short. He told her to turn around, and she blushed. And with that, he analyzed it in an extremely meticulous clinical way and concluded that it was perfect. Suddenly, someone was knocking on the door asking for help. It seemed to be Gaochang holding Xiaokong, but he had big teeth. Duan and Seiji couldn't open the door since those guys had eaten Liana down there. If they let them in, they might be eaten too. Suchin asked her if they really had eaten someone. Outside, the 3 guys were restraining Xiaoquan, while Suchin appeared in the background telling them not to break people's doors. They looked at Suchin with a bunch of veins on their faces and giant teeth. It seemed like everyone was transforming. What Suchin didn't know was that there was a guy right next to the door. Suddenly, he attacked with Minecraft blade right in Suchin's face. But he easily grabbed the arm and managed to immobilize the guy. Gaochang and his henchmen were halfway transformed and couldn't believe he dodged that. Suddenly, Suchen broke free from them and ran towards Suchin. She reached out for help, saying he needed to save her. But he grabbed her by the neck, and clearly she was also transforming. And Suchin explained that those who consume human flesh in this new world now transform. So clearly she's no longer human to be saved. Gaochang said it was the end of the world, so it didn't matter if they were eating someone as long as they could survive. And Xiaokong, even immobilized, said the meat was delicious and her body was filled with energy. She tried to attack Suchin, saying she was eager to taste him. But she received a kick and was ejected from the door of the room to the other side. It broke even the window, falling outside the building. But she managed to hold on at the last moment and started climbing, saying that Suchin wouldn't get away so easily. But that's when she noticed it. She was getting hit by the scorching sun and started to burn. Suchin was calmly with his hand in his pocket, while the 3 thugs ran towards him, saying he couldn't be given the chance to pull out a weapon. But calmly, Suchin asked why they thought he would waste bullets. Suddenly, one of them jumped in Suchin's face, saying he was underestimating them too much. And the sneaky guy pulled out the Minecraft weapon and said he likes to waste it. And he hit the guy right in the head. Even though they were monsters, they kept their consciousness. So they came up with a plan to spread out and attack him from all directions. While Suchin finished off one coming from the front, the other thug was already above on the ceiling, warning that not only were they faster, but their reaction time was also much better. With one attacking from each side, he took advantage to go over and warn Suchin that it was the end for him. He was confident that with a punch, he would finish the boy and steal everything he had. But Suchin jumped and caught him halfway, asking if he had talking. And with that, they both fell with Suchin smashing his head on the ground. Another Minecraft play came for him. But Suchin was a pro and easily blocked it. With a single move, he disarmed one of the zombies and took out the other one beside. Xiaoqian took advantage of this opening to try to land a punch. But his neck was also grabbed and Suchin slammed him against the wall. But that's when something else was coming from the corridor. Even Suchin seemed to be startled by what he saw. It was Xiaoqian completely transformed into a drop demon. She jumped from the glass and approached Suchin. He recognized her and called her by her name. Seeing the transformation, he said she transformed too quickly, so apparently her dependencies are deep. As he finished off Xiaoqian, he said since she wouldn't disappear, he would finish her off again. And with that, Xiaoqian was lifeless, transformed into the ocean, and let out a scream. Inside the room, Duan was getting impressed. I'm also very impressed with her, goddammit. saying that Suchin was too incredible. He was dealing with the entire Xiaoqian gang alone. But seeing that creature in the corridor, she knew that was much more dangerous than the others. She knew that if she wanted to stay by his side for a long time, she couldn't be a burden to him. So she called Suchin's name, who turned to see what it was. He was confused by her saying she would help. He said if she didn't get scared and hide, that was already good. But if she came out armed like that with so much thickness, he would be very distracted in combat. She was kind of confused until she realized she was indeed impressive doctor. Meanwhile, Xiaoqian was making some noises, until she let out a big scream and jumped towards Suchin with her mouth open. He was surprised and turned to see her coming. But it was too late. He took a blow right on the shoulder. Duan was startled and called out his name. But at that moment, Suchin had already activated his berserker power, and her claws only made small scratches. Xiaoqian turned around disbelievingly. In a quick move using her tail, she reached Suchin's back. And taking advantage that he was immobile, she bit him right on the shoulder. But her teeth couldn't penetrate his skin, which seemed as hard as steel. She couldn't understand what just happened. Suchin asked if her teeth were just for decoration, but warned that now it was his turn. He grabbed one arm and then the other. He jumped backwards to her back, immobilizing her. He pressed his foot on her spine, and with her unable to react, he asked if she was ready. With that, he pulled both her arms out while jumping and slamming her on the ground. Xiaoqian fell to the ground in agony, and Suchin stylishly landed behind her with the toothpicks in his hand. Tossing her remains away, he said he was planning to make her suffer much more in this apocalypse. But now that she's like this, she forced him to finish her off as quickly as possible. But suddenly he noticed something. Using her tail, Xiaoqian grabbed one of the bodies on the ground. She opened her monster mouth and started swallowing the guy. Her mouth stretched all the way to the side of her spine, and her body burning from the inside easily melted the guy's flesh. With that, he was devoured and her arm began to regenerate. In a few seconds, all the wounds were healed and she stared at Suchin and let out a scream. Even for him, it was a surprise that she could regenerate lost limbs like that. In the room, Duan was disbelieving this was completely against medicine. But strangely, Suchin said it was too good. She was confused, not understanding what he was talking about. Suchin was celebrating the fact that it wasn't so easy to kill her. This meant he could spend a lot of time tearing each of her pieces apart. In a flash of movement, he lunged towards Xiaoqian. Even transformed, she was unable to defeat him, and he suddenly grabbed her shoulder. With red eyes, he said they would only find out how many times her body could regenerate. Pulling her left arm, he said they would start with that one. From the other side of her ear, he said it was now the turn of the right arm and pulled another one. The monster was agonizing. Tossing the 4 limbs up, she fell to the ground battered. But she easily regenerated. As soon as she was back to 100%, Suchin said the first round was over. But she better get ready because the second was about to begin. From the room, Duan watched everything, the rain of limbs being thrown everywhere, while Suchin kept finishing her off. She regenerated once again, and it was time for the third round. He continued removing each of her limbs and the tail. And with that came the 4th round, the 5th round. He began testing removing other parts, and after many experiments, Xiaoqian was on the ground crying. While Suchin said he was already satisfied he wasn't a demon, but the little humanity left in her made her ask why she was being treated like this. Suchin didn't like that question, especially because he remembered very well what she did to him in the past. When he did everything for her, he was stabbed in the back, and then he went to step on her saying it was revenge. And with one step, it was the end of Xiaoqian. Disbelieving and scared of what she saw, Duan asked if he was okay and if he was sane. But Suchin ignored her question and only wanted to know if she was ready. Amidst that chaos, she was confused and asked ready for what. Suchin approached her from behind and said he had been so heroic now. Shouldn't she reward him? Duan seemed to agree because she only asked if it would be right there. In another part of the city, at a rescue point, someone said the temperatures seemed to be normalizing. With open hands, this person wondered if it was the end of the apocalypse. When suddenly, Su Feng appeared a little embarrassed calling for the captain. He warned that there was a crowd of survivors approaching the rescue point, and the captain took a look. With short hair and carrying 3 giant weapons, she observed what was coming. They weren't survivors, but zombies that had already been transformed into drug demons. As soon as the captain noticed this, her pupils contracted. The demons began to run towards them, and she warned to evacuate all civilians from that place. But the zombie crowd seemed endless, and Sufong begged the captain not to die while defending her at the front line. She told him to shut up and advance to the rescue point. Meanwhile, Suchin said now she would experience the power of the berserker. But Duan said she had already experienced that berserker power many times and asked how many times they had done it. Suchin warned her that the extreme heat waves would ease off for now, and he wanted to go out to resolve something. So he needed to leave her with unforgettable memories. Timidly and hesitantly, Duan asked if she couldn't go with him. Suchin seemed to ignore her question and only said that the people around him first needed to meet two conditions. They needed to be valuable and absolutely obey any order. And she replied that understood. Another berserker adventure begins. With that, Mayful and Suchin said Duan had completely submitted to him. He knew he had to return soon before the great tsunami began. In the past life, the excess of people moving towards the rescue point caused large hordes of zombies that ended up destroying that place. Many civilians and soldiers died in that concentration. Moreover, it has caused Minecraft weapons to fall into the hands of several people. Suddenly, 3 guys appear in front of him and told him to stop the car or he will suffer the consequences. From inside, Suchan seemed unfazed, wondering if that guy was crazy to ask a car to stop like that. With that, he just stepped on the accelerator. The guys were startled and started to run, but Suchin just accelerated and lightly tapped the guys, sending them flying. Very friendly, our protagonist put the 3 to sleep peacefully on the asphalt. Suchin knew it would be the same as before. The excessive heat and the wave of zombies caused the collapse of the subway underground. As many people ran to the deepest part to escape the heat, tens of thousands died there. Observing the bottom of the subway, several red eyes stared at him. That's because the sound of the car was attracting everyone. Unfortunately, it wasn't worth hunting power crystals, since you would have to look into each of their heads. And with so many down there, it would take too much time. He then decided to take a look at the situation at the school, while remembering that he hadn't been to this place since his graduation from the engineering university. Night had fallen again when Suchan stored his car in a dimensional space. He entered a building and came face to face with 2 transformed creatures. They were chained by collars around their necks, and from the back on the sofa, 3 guys seemed calm. And the boss said that for Suchan to enter their territory, he would have to drop that backpack on his back. Suchan took out a chicken leg from the bottom of the backpack, asking if those guys could help him in offering some of the food. They couldn't believe someone had chicken leg at a time like this. The boss immediately said he would definitely help him just throw those chicken legs. Suchan smiled and threw the chicken leg. Right in the middle of the 2 dropped demons, hunger took over, and the 3 guys tried to lunge to compete for the chicken leg. But it was tied by a string, and the 3 were startled when Suchan started pulling. He apologized, saying the 3 did deserve to eat something so good. They grabbed his weapons to finish Suchan. But Suchan grabbed the Minecraft one to sort everything out, and 3 loud sounds echoed in that room. Surely it was a very good sleep-inducing weapon, because the 3 boys went into an eternal sleep. While Suchan couldn't remember so many idiots surviving in the past life, maybe the tips he's giving to other people have affected the world more than he thinks. He heads to the reptile and snake laboratory door. Grabbing the padlock on the door, he easily destroys it, saying apparently not many people come to this place, as most of the creatures that had already died with the smell of death fill the place.